Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. Thank you so much for joining me on this Tuesday for our tutorial on creating a logo with Canva. So we're going to start off today with a little presentation, and we're just going to go over some of the information beforehand. Feel free to grab a piece of paper and a pen to take some notes. We are going to be doing a physical logo afterwards. So, not to worry about that. You're not going to miss out. All right. So, getting started, creating a logo for your business with Canva. Oh, and as we get started, just a reminder, we are recording this and it will be posted online at a later date for everybody to view again. All right, so we're going to start off with a little overview of what we're going to be talking about during the presentation. So we're going to have a little introduction, talk about point of difference, logo styles and type. We're going to go over a brand kit, which includes typography and colors. We're going to touch on graphics. We're going to look at the tutorial steps before we complete the tutorial. And then there's just going to be some final tips with my contact information at the end. And then the tutorial will begin. All right, so starting off, your logo communicates who you are as a brand to your clients and your customers. So this is a really important aspect of your branding. And as you can see from some of the statistics on the screen, Canva is really great at providing statistics. And again, they have wonderful blog posts and tutorials on their website. I went through all of them for a logo and condensed what I could for you guys to try and give you some info before we hopped in. So one of the factors that's really important is 85% of purchases made by people are influenced by color. So as well, 80% saw an increase of brand awareness due to their choice of color. So it's actually very interesting, all of the studies and the research that has been put into statistics and reports that deal with color and how humans react to different colors. And as well, from the middle statistic there, 62 to 90% of a product assessment is based on its color. So this again is a subconscious thing that humans do. So that's why when it comes to your logo, taking the time to really focus on each individual aspect of it is extremely important and will pay off in the long run. All right, so you're probably asking, Megan, what is the point of this picture with the one red balloon? So the point of the one red balloon symbolizes uniqueness. So you're going to have to take some time to really think about what makes you special, unique, and different. And this translates to your point of difference. So what you really want to do, like I said, is take some time to focus on what makes you special as a VA, what unique services are you offering that others might not be, and what makes you different and sets you apart from everyone else. If you're not sure what yours is, that's totally okay. Because here are some questions to ask yourself. Like I said, Canva is very great, very thorough. So step one, ask yourself, what makes your brand special? What makes your brand different? And what makes your brand unique? So again, remember that your brand, when you're marketing yourself as a virtual assistant, is yourself. So also too, if you have a hard time answering these questions, you can also go to a trusted loved one or confidant and ask them to answer these questions on your behalf and just try and get a feel for how other people view you and your services. And that might help get you started. So step two, what does your brand do better than your competitors? And the second question to ask yourself is, what is your biggest strength? For step 3, you'll want to ask yourself, what is the best compliment you have received from a customer or client? And then you're going to want to take some time to describe your brand in 3 words. And again, this is not something that is done super quickly. This does take some time to formulate. So be sure that you take time to really think about it and that you choose 3 words that really describe you, your brand, and really what your ethos, mission, what you want to accomplish as a virtual assistant, what your business is all about. And step 4. So the last 2 questions to ask yourself are, what are the brand accomplishments that you are most proud of? And what do people like the most about working with you? So again, brand accomplishments that you're most proud of. What have you accomplished as a virtual assistant that you're most proud of? And if you're just starting out, that's totally okay. What you can also put for brand accomplishments that you're most proud of is, for example, if you graduated with high honors and you were able to get your first client within 2 weeks of graduation, that could be something that you list under brand accomplishments. And then what do people like most about working with you is pretty self-explanatory. So again, breaking these questions down into 4 different categories is really going to help make it less overwhelming for you and gives you just a couple of things to answer at a time. Trying to give you guys enough time to possibly write stuff down if you are. So again, if I'm going too fast, just let me know and I can slow down. So our next topic is logo style. So this is where you're going to want to consider what's going to match your brand, company, and aesthetic. Are you going to want to go with a more cool vintage logo or have a more modern minimalist approach? And again, that is going to come up again when we talk about graphics and different things that we do when we're setting up the logo. So logo type. So when it comes to the type of logo, there's 5 main categories that you can choose from. And again, these are very loose. There are more, there are less, there are subgroups, etc. But we just try to narrow it down for you. So the first is symbol or icon. So this is really a helpful type of logo because it can remain recognizable without text. And the second one for word mark. This one on the flip side uses just simple text to spell out your brand name. The third one on our list is lettermark. So a lettermark uses text to create a symbol or an icon. For example, Chanel with the 2 C's, that's an example of a lettermark. A combination mark, this type of logo combines a symbol and a word mark logo. So it's a mixture of them both. So again, Chanel is the perfect example with the 2 backward C's with Chanel written underneath. And the last example we have here is emblem. So this one resembles a seal or a crest, and it features the company's name within the design. Okay, so creating a brand kit. So when it comes to designing on Canva, creating a brand kit can actually save you hours of time in the long run. So it's really important to take some time before you begin designing your logo to determine the fonts that your company or brand is going to use for your headings, your subheadings, and your body text. So you might be asking me, why create a brand kit at all? So it also helps, aside from setting your fonts, it helps to set your colors and your logo. So that way, when you're designing, you have a unified look across every document that you create. So because we just touched on font, we're going to talk a little about typography. So I'm just going to discuss the four main branches with you today. There are more, and there are more subsections again, but we're just going to focus on main four today. So the first one is display. So these fonts vary, but they are defined by a unique set of characteristics. For example, the font that you see on the screen is Lobster. The second one, it's sans serif. So this text is a more modern take on the traditional serif fonts, and it's a lot smoother in appearance because it's got no anchors on the end of the letters. And an example of that font is Arial or Helvetica, and Arial is the one that is pictured on the screen. The third is script. So script mirrors cursive handwriting, and an example of this is Pacifico or Brusher, and Pacifico is the one that's on your screen right now. Typography, again, too, is one of those aspects of creative marketing that's had a lot of research done on it as well. The different types of font that people read off of a screen easier versus types of font that are easier to read off of printed documents, etc. So taking some time to do some research into that would also be beneficial for you. And lastly, serif. So serif is traditional fonts, and a lot of the times they will have anchors at the end of the letters. So for example, Times New Roman, like what appears on your screen. So now we're going to talk about colors for your brand kit. So it's recommended to choose 5 colors that are going to help you in creating your on-brand color schemes. So again, first thing first, do your research. It's very important to study logos that are already in the industry. This is because you really need to take note of things that you're seeing repeated in logos. So that way you can take note of what is working for companies and what isn't working for companies. So studies suggest that while you can stick to 5, it is recommended to stick to 4 actual colors or less. So one way that I like to do this and combine all the research is, for example, down here for an example color swatch, there's a spot for white, color 1, color 2, color 3, and then a black at the end. And again, your whites and blacks don't necessarily have to be stark white and stark black. It can be a shade of white and a shade of black, as long as it's legible. So as I continually say, research. So I stress this because a lot of research has been done, as I've said, on colors and the way that people react to them. So it's suggested not only by me, but by marketing professionals to do as much research as you possibly can of your own, because color is an extremely important aspect of creative marketing. And you want to make sure that you're eliciting the proper reaction from your clients and customers that you want. So I don't know if you can tell from the photos on this slide, but we're going to talk about graphics. So again, we're going to touch on graphics because when it comes to using graphics in a logo, you really need to ask yourself if you're going to be incorporating a symbol into your logo, if you're going to have a mascot, and then you really have to think about how you're going to incorporate these elements before you begin your design. So for example, if you're going to have a lot of print-based documents, it might not be the best idea to go with a really heavy color-based graphic, like the one you see pictured in the middle, because that does take up a lot of ink and it might end up taking a lot of ink up for your clients and potential customers, and they might not necessarily appreciate that. So it's different little things to think about like that. All right, so next up are the tutorial steps. So for the tutorial that we're about to do in actual Canva, these are the steps that we are going to follow. And these are the ones that I recommend you following when you're completing your own logo. So the first step is browse the layouts. And you can end up choosing to customize one that's already there, or you can end up building one of your own. It's important to note that the logo option is also located under creative design. Second step is going to be choosing your color palette. So in order to do that, just click on the plus sign under the document colors to bring it up on the color wheel. And I'll show you how to do that when we're in there. The third step is to set your background color. And the fourth is to choose your font. And again, if you have taken the time to set up a brand kit beforehand, choosing a color and a font are going to be a lot easier and less time consuming than if you're just going at it for the first time. So the fifth step is optional, and you can add additional style elements if that's the way you're choosing to go with your logo. So additional style elements are things like lines, shapes, illustrations, icons, etc. And then once you've got everything looking just the way that you want it to, your last step is to finish and save. I'm just giving you a couple of moments to finish writing the steps down before I go on to the final tips before the tutorial begins. All right. So my first tip is develop a family of logos. This is a practice that I am extremely fond of because I'm all about time-saving practices, honestly. So developing a family of logos is really going to help you in multiple ways. For example, if your logo is in color, you can create a black and white version for printed documents. And that eliminates the problem that I was talking about before if your logo is heavily color-based. Another example is that if your logo is a combination of text and graphics, you can create a symbol logo to use as an icon on your website. All right, so some final tips that I have. Do try to avoid trends as much as possible. This is going to save you time in the fact that you're not going to have to keep redesigning your logo in order to stay up on the trends. And this makes sure that your brand is more recognizable because it's not consistently changing. My second step, do try to make your logo an accurate representation of your brand, because this is really going to help communicate to potential clients and customers who you are, what you're about, and what you're able to do. Do keep your end goal in mind, because again, this is really going to help when it comes to answering all of the questions that we talked about previously and helping to make sure that your logo is an accurate representation of your brand and who you are as a virtual assistant. And last but not least, try and remember that your logo is your visual elevator pitch. It's the first thing that people are going to see, and like it or not, you will be judged by it. It's human nature, and you really want to make sure that it's communicating what you want being said to your clients and potential customers. So again, doing research on color and the emotions and reactions that they elicit from people, typography that's easy to read, different things like that are really going to help make sure your logo stands out to people and it's memorable. So that brings me to the end of our presentation portion of the tutorial. Does anybody have any questions before we hop on to Canva? Nope. All right. Perfect. So far, so good. All right. So when you log in, this is the main screen you are going to see in Canva. I do have the pro version, just as a disclaimer. So that's why it could possibly look different than what your free version dashboard looks like. So first step, browse layouts. So searching Canva, you can type logo up in here. You can create a blank logo by clicking right here. But if you decide to type to search through templates, open up this page for you here. So as you can see from the left side here, they do have them sorted by theme. There's different styles of logos. As you can see from my scrolling, I wasn't lying when I said there were many, but they've also got them sorted by color. So if there's a specific color of a template that you were looking for, it's a lot easier to find. So as you can see from my scrolling, there's many different types of logos that are out there. So this is where doing research on your industry and really seeing what's working for people, what's not, what's catching people's attention, what's kind of getting missed. It's really going to help you stand out from the crowd because as you can see, there are a lot of logos out there. So we're going to scroll back up to the top. And for the sake of our tutorial, we're going to start with a blank logo. Okay, so once we have decided on doing our own logo, Our second step is going to be to choose a color palette. So style is on the left-hand side here. Is one of the places you can click to see your brand kit. So this is where your color schemes that you've decided are for your brand are going to appear. And this is where the font types that you select are going to appear. Up at the top, you can select all and choose between colors and fonts. So we're going to select colors. And as we scroll through, you can also see that Canva shows you trending color palettes that are happening across the platform. So for the sake of this one, we're going to choose Thrift Shop. Nope, no, we're not. It's way too far down at the bottom. We'll just choose Nordic Woods at the top. Perfect. So as you can see on the screen, there's a shuffle option. So it can go through all the colors in your color palette for you. And you can decide for your background color, which is step number 3, which one you want for your logo. So we'll start off with the plain one there, just to make it a lot easier. So we've completed step number 3 for setting our background color. The next step is step number 4, and we are going to choose our font. So we're just going to hit the Fonts tab up top here. And again, this is where you're going to have the fonts that you've selected for your brand. They will appear up here. Below them, Canva is going to show you trending pairs of fonts that are happening across the platform, the same way it does with color palettes. And as you can see, there's a fair few. So we'll choose this one. So as you can see here, put it in as heading and subheading. All right. So for choosing font, we're going to go with Homemade Apple for the heading. And I cannot pronounce that for the subheading. It starts with a K. We'll go Font K. There we go. Font K for short. So for heading, we're going to put a brand name in there. So this is where, for example, you could put your name. And now it goes on 2 lines. That's not so great. So we'll select it. And when it comes to font size here, we can minimize it. So it's 58 right now, but we want them both to fit on the same line. So we can try 56, but it's not small enough. 48, it does fit on the same line, but it's not going to fit within the template lines. So if you click to drag, you can see the red lines popping up around the outside. So those are considered the border lines, basically, for your logo. And this is where you want to keep your text and designs between this square. So that way, when it goes to exporting, when you're uploading it to different things, you make sure that your whole logo is seen and that it's centered. So we have to go smaller than 48. So if we want to go one number at a time, we can just click the minus button up top. And it shrinks it one number at a time. But if you know you want to go down a significant amount, you just pick a smaller number. And then you can click drag and center it. Perfect. Now we'll go to subheading. Again, this is going to be completely up to you, your brand, and what you want to say with it. So you can either put the year of service that you started, or you can put something simple like virtual assistant. And now we're going to click and drag and make sure it fits. There we go. Just perfectly within the lines. So we don't have to adjust much if we don't want to. But now the bottom kind of takes away from the name at the top. So making it a smaller font size might be a good idea just so it doesn't distract from the main message, which is you. So again, we'll go to make it smaller. There we go. Perfect. So the next step for us. Step number 5, add additional style elements. So one thing you can do is the G, since it's a cursive font, it comes down a little bit. So if you wanted to, you could even take Virtual Assistant, make it one font size smaller, and drag it so that way it lines up underneath the last half of the name after the loop, the downward loop. And that way, if you hold down the Shift button and click on each individual element, you can hit the group selection at the top, and that'll pair them together. So when you move it around, they're both moving around at the same time, and you don't have to worry about realigning them. We'll start off by centering it. Perfect. So additional style elements. So I will ungroup this just to show you one additional style element that you can do with text. So Virtual Assistant, one of the things you can do is go to Effects. And you can see here, there's different effects for the font type. You can choose shadow font, you choose for it to be a lift, you can choose hollow text, splice. You can also select the color down in here, echo, same with color selection there. There's glitch and neon. The other option in effects is to curve the text. So if you decide to do that, it'll start off in a rainbow, but with the slide function on the left, you can decide if you want it to be a full circle, if you want it to instead bend the other way, then you get it to 0 and take it up the left side instead. So really try and give yourself the chance to play around with different features in here when you're creating your logo. It doesn't all have to be done in one day. That's just going to really unnecessarily stress you out. So again, try and play around with the different options. We're going to regroup ours to make it easier. Make sure it's centered. Perfect. All right. So for additional elements, say we did want to put a symbol in there. We can drag this down so it's in the last bottom half of the logo and save the top part for an element. So on the sidebar here, second from the top is elements. So if you click on that, it will show you recently used lines and shapes, graphics. It also shows you photos, videos, audios, different charts you can make, etc. But what we want to focus on up here, you can browse through different ones, or for us, we can see lines and shapes. There's any in there, but there's not really any in there that we see that speaks to being a virtual assistant. So another easy thing we can do is type virtual assistant. Enter. And as you can see at the top here, the little not so easy to see tabs, there's all photos, graphics, videos, and audio. If you select on graphics, it'll narrow down the choices that appear here for you. If you click on these 3 buttons there, again, you can filter by color, orientation, if you want them square, vertical, or horizontal, if you want them to be static or animated. And these ones right here are examples of animated ones. Because yes, your logo can be animated. So say we want to make an animated one and we chose this. That kind of sits over top of our name and what we do and kind of distracts from it. So if we click on position, you can bring it forward, you can bring it backward, you can align it to the top of the page, left, bottom, right. So if we align it to the top, still not that great. So we'll align it to the middle. Take the side, and if we drag it, we can just make it smaller and drag it to the middle. So that way it adds to our logo instead of taking away from it. And again, if you want to group them all together, you are going to have to ungroup the text. Hold down the Shift key and with your mouse, select the element and then hit group again. And then you can drag it and center it on the document. So for this example, we can name it Logo Tutorial 1. So as you can see, it says right here with the 6 seconds, if you click on it, you can see that the logo, when it plays with the element running, it's a total of 6 seconds in length. So you just hit close in the top left to go back to your screen. And when it comes to downloading it, you can hit the download button here. And Canva will always give you a suggested file type. But if you don't want to download it as that, you can just click on it. And it does list all the different file types here that you have access to. So for example, say we would download the MP4 video. There we go. Perfect. So we would have, say, one logo there, but say you wanted some alternate methods for downloading as well. These 3 little dots here, if you click on them, you can download, you can share the link to it, you can choose to present it, you can present and record if you're doing a presentation. I highly doubt you're ever going to want to present and record your logo. But you also have the option down here for sharing options across social platforms. If you want to send the logo by email, you can click these 3 little dots here for see all. But then they also give you options if you want to have your logo printed on hoodies, t-shirts, banners, etc. They have it all listed here for you in one handy place, which makes branding very, very easy. So we're just going to ungroup this and delete the animated element. By clicking on it and just hitting the delete button on your keyboard, it can get rid of it, no problem. If, say, for example, that isn't what you wanted to do, the little arrow in the top left corner here, if you hit that, you can just undo. And it's right back to the way that it was. And Canva does save as you go, so you don't have to worry about your work being lost. They do have a pop-up window that pops up and lets you know that if you continue with your design, it won't be saved from this point onwards. So it's always best to just back out to the home page and go back in. All right. So say we're looking for a static element now. You can select static and apply the filter. And we can kind of scroll through some different virtual assistant options that they have here. And again, you're going to want to pick one that speaks to your brand, what you want to say, what you want to communicate to your clients, etc. So by the time you get to this point, you should have a general idea of what you're looking for. So for the sake of this tutorial, we are going to pick one and just have them in there. So we will center him and line him up with our text. And then holding it on the shift button, we will individually click on each element and then hit group, which is perfect. Hiding this column will give you a bigger screen to work with here. Again, it'll depend on personal preference if that bothers you or not. So with this element here, you can still click on it individually, even if they're grouped. And see, this isn't exactly the color that you want. You just click on the little color box here on the left. And this is the little plus button that we were talking about earlier. So again, you will have your brand kit palettes listed here. There's default colors underneath them, but say you wanted to get a little creative with it, you can go add new color and you can actually drag the button around. So again, doing some research is going to come in handy because you're already going to have color numbers in your mind if you've done your research properly for different colors that you want to gear towards. And as you can see, it keeps it there under document colors, which is perfect. And say we didn't necessarily want to have black text, we can change the color of our text as well. So we click on A for text color and it'll pop up the color wheel again. And you can either choose for it to be the same as what's in the logo, or you can choose from a default color underneath and just kind of click and see what different ones look like. Or say you want to make it super easy for yourself. The styles tab right here that we were at earlier, if you click on that and you click your color palette, it'll shuffle the colors through for you. And that way you can just click through and see different examples of what your logo could look like with the colors that you've chosen. And so once you land on one that you like, say this one, for example. When you go to hit the download button, it'll suggest PNG, which is the best for a logo. And then you can just click download. So my other suggestion is that you download it a second time, but then click transparent background. So the benefit of clicking transparent background is, I'll drag this over for you to see, is that it saves the element and the text, but it does not save the background. So that way you're able to take this and use it as a logo over top of, say, a photo that you took as a watermark. So that way, if you do decide to do your own stock photography for your business, you can put your own watermark on it to save people from taking your images. And so touching on the family of logos that we were talking about quickly, what you can do is duplicate the page. And we'll do it a couple of times. So scrolling up, we'll save the first one. We'll save the first one just like that. For this one, we'll click on it and we'll hit shuffle again. And we'll save this as our option number 2. So this way we've got different versions of the logo, but they're still the same in both font type, color, and element. So it presents a uniformed professional look across the board. And so as we were talking about the black and white one as well, that one you'll have to go in and do bit by bit. You won't be able to shuffle through it. So just by clicking on the background color, it'll bring you to the color section. So the individual element, again, click on the color and you can make that black. Clicking on the first part of the text, back on font color. You can either hit black down here in default color or up here beside the plus sign. And then clicking on the last part of your logo and changing that to black as well. And then your background, you click on the gray, and white is down there on the right. And there is your black and white logo for when you go to have print documents. So a handy thing that you can do too is you can name the individual pages. So BW can stand for black and white. And this one can be color. This is third. And we'll name this color 2. And then we'll name this one color 1. So when we go to download, you can download all of them as a PNG, which again is very great. But another thing that I recommend doing, just in case you ever need it, you never know, download transparent background. So when you download multiple pages, one thing you are going to notice is that they download a little differently. So instead of the individual MP4 or PNGs, you're going to get zip files. So all you have to do is open the zip file, and the zip file will pop open each individual one for you. They'll be in their own folder, which is pretty handy. And whatever you've named the individual pages is what the individual files are named. So it makes it really easy to find. And now we'll just go over the transparent background ones because you always want to double check your work. Even on export, you want to make sure the element hasn't moved off center or the text hasn't possibly changed size. The black and white one is good. Color 1, great. And as you'll notice, this one just has a white background because it's the transparent background PNG. The same with this logo as well. And with this one. So another thing that's really handy for too is if you have a black background and you want to upload it to the black, that'll make it stand out too if you happen to be doing like a fun design for a special event or something like that. Well, that brings us to the end of our steps for today. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, you are very welcome. I just had a comment in the chat here that says, thanks, Megan. I find this tool excellent. It will save us a lot of work and time. And you're very welcome. I find this tool excellent as well. I've been using it since I was in school, actually. And I honestly find it saves a lot of work, a lot of time, and it makes everything so easy and streamlines everything. And then once you get into it a little more, it really starts to pique your interest about different Adobe programs. And so that's when you get to up your skill level and do a little more research, take a couple more tutorials. And I find it really helps with that continual learning factor. Yes, of course. I had another comment in the chat. This was great, but would have to get into it before I have questions. Thank you very much. And you're very welcome. Again, once you guys get into designing this, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information, you can back up the video. It was on the last slide. And yeah, again, reach out to me. I will by all means help you with any and everything that I can. Canva is a lot of fun for me. Although I warn you, it can be addicting. Make sure you put your phone or your iPad or your laptop down every once in a while. All right, thanks everybody. Bye for now. We'll see you next week.